good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from. Thank you for joining and welcome to another Veeam LinkedIn live stream Industry Insights. Generally every Monday. Today, Jason Buffington's getting some time off for good behavior, and I am joined by Tim Myers and Tim Hudson, both from Veeam. Hey, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and busy week to join us. Now, Tim, you guys are joining from where? Maybe Tim M first, just going left to right.
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. Tim H?
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. I am coming live from Boulder, Colorado. Now, the reason I mentioned that, we're going to be referring to a world map. If you haven't seen us in a while or seen us at all, what we're presenting right now is just where we've got people viewing in from. So we'd love for you to drop in a comment in the LinkedIn live stream just to give an indication about where you might be tuning in from. And even if you're not joining us live, feel free to drop a comment in when you watch that later on, and we'll update our tabulations. We'll come back to this a couple times throughout the next, maybe 20-ish, 25 minutes or so. But without further ado, I want to jump into today's topic with both of our Tims, and maybe easiest way to do that is just ask each of you, what is your role here? And at Veeam Software, we have an acronym that we're going to unpack because naturally being a technology company, we have to have acronyms. So we're going to unpack an acronym called VCSP. We'll get to that in a moment, but maybe Tim H, what is it your role is at Veeam?
Thanks, Dave. I'm a solutions architect, specifically on our VCSP engineering team. And I know we'll get to the acronym in a minute, but what I do is I help our most mature, most strategic VCSPs build, run, and provide excellent quality services to our VCSP customers, leveraging Veeam software. And so I help them by making sure they're up to date with the latest code and information, and making sure that their implementation is current and working properly.
Awesome. And Tim M, I want to bring you in as well because, give you a chance to comment. It might be similar to what Tim H just mentioned, but also, in addition, maybe you could tell the audience a little bit about a joint activity podcast, if we want to call it that both of you do.
Yeah, sure, Dave. So I'm a business solution architect, also on the VCSP engineering team. And my role is ditto, word for word, exactly what Tim Hudson said. In addition to kind of being that level of translation, if you will, where I get to work with a lot of the business owners in the VCSP engineering partner-related side, where not only do we present the technology and the Veeam-powered solutions, but how does that translate into a business as a service offering, and really just play a little bit of a role of translator quite often. Dave, I'm really happy about the T4 podcast that we're doing. Tim and I came up with this idea a couple of months back. And in the spirit of the what if game that I love to play, we really talked about, let's put together some content that's specific for our partners in the VCSP space and give them information that I think they're really after. And let's provide a little bit of humor. Let's make it interactive. Let's bounce ideas back and forth off of each other. And it's turned out really good so far. We've had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I believe now you guys are up to 5. Did you just drop episode 5 last maybe Thursday or Friday even? Is that right?
Yes, sir, we did. All about the Service Provider Console, V5 beta.
Nice. Yeah, I encourage everyone to check those out. They're fairly brief. It's not like you're in it for an hour and a half or anything. And there's actually some live demonstration as well, meaning whether that's a kind of a whiteboard architecturally taking people through what it would be like to consume Veeam as a service, as well as specifics on what certain consoles or technical capabilities are delivered. But now maybe we should actually hit our punchline. And Tim H, why don't you take us through what does the acronym VCSP actually translate into? And we'll get to kind of why and how you consume it a little bit, but I feel like we ought to define this a little.
Yeah, so VCSP stands for Veeam Cloud and Service Providers. Essentially, these VCSPs are broken up into 2 groups, our cloud providers and our service providers, or some folks who do a little bit of both. Cloud providers would be those who provide something like offsite backup, offsite DR capabilities. And a service provider would be someone who manages your Veeam infrastructure, helps you run Veeam agents on your workstations to provide offsite backup for those systems. Someone who can provide you advice for what you do as a business. Perhaps that has to do with compliance and certifications, or perhaps it's again that assistance in terms of hands on the keyboard, helping folks run their IT organizations.
Perfect. And Tim Myers, this is not something new, meaning it seems like as a service in this kind of 2020 pandemic timeframe, there's a lot of organizations consuming more cloud services and capabilities, more things as a service. But for Veeam, even though maybe we're getting a little more vocal about the capabilities right now, this actually dates back some period of time.
It does, Dave. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 plus years now, and we've got a lot of the same team members that have been with Veeam for that period of time as well, that have seen this thing grow since the very beginning. And I feel like it gains more momentum as we go on. People want to transfer that responsibility of managing their IT infrastructure over to the industry experts, right? Our service providers that have really indulged into Veeam software, learned its features and benefits, and built a business around that. It's been real fun to watch.
And what we're seeing right now is our colleague in product strategy is global technologist named Anthony Spiteri, actually out of Australia. That sort of interesting looking green timeline that you see, that is a reverse roadmap of the Veeam Cloud and Service Providers functionality that, as Tim M mentioned, spans greater than a decade now. And you can see actually an acceleration, right? In the last handful of years, more and more capabilities and services delivered. And the little blurb there, a little cutout from a PR release, actually has a date that is almost exactly 10 and a half years ago. And our colleague Anthony likes to point out that even prior to this decade plus announcement that you see there, the little top header for, Veeam itself actually did have organizations providing services through Veeam ahead of that. So I'm going to pause on that with the notion of lots of different data points. Let's hit a few data points on our global map. I think we've got a few countries that have come in just in a handful of minutes. We see India there. United Emirates, UAE is oftentimes represented. Brazil, Romania, Mexico. We've got people from Illinois, New Hampshire, Honduras, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, Namibia as well. So, practically every continent. We're going to have to go work on our Aussie friends, although it's probably a little early for them. We'll see. Senegal just came in as well. So one of the things I love, Tim, you mentioned wanting to create a platform through, the social media and podcast platform that you deliver and try to provide value, try to provide a little bit more information. Well, let's start to double click on that. I mean, it was kind of teed up a little bit different ways that the solution providers can help, but let's put a finer point on that. Maybe Tim H., why don't you start to take us through that?
Yeah, there's a number of services that these VCSPs deliver through Veeam software, and this is what Tim and I do. We work with a dedicated VCSP sales team and a dedicated VCSP marketing team. What we can do through Veeam, for example, infrastructure protection is one kind of bulk bucket for these services. Broadly speaking, this is where a cloud provider, somebody who would be delivering infrastructure as a service, hosting virtual machine workloads, uses Veeam to back them up. They can then provide the valuable Veeam technology to their customers for their own restore purposes. But this infrastructure protection could also be on-prem for that particular customer. And the service provider now manages that remote Veeam environment. So that's one kind of bucket over there with infrastructure protection. I'll jump right to public cloud protection because this is something very important and exciting to me and Veeam today. We've announced and delivered a Veeam backup for AWS, announced and delivered Veeam backup for Azure, and announced Veeam backup for Google Cloud. What we can do is we're beginning to now layer technologies like backup and replication with backup for AWS, something that was delivered in version 10A of backup and replication, and now allow a service provider to manage that Veeam infrastructure. So if that includes their on-prem vSphere infrastructure, fantastic. If that also covers their off-prem public cloud AWS infrastructure, that's also obviously fantastic. And now for the provider to be able to manage all that through their tool set, pretty incredible offering capability there, Dave.
And Tim Myers, I liked how Tim Hudson laid out the cloud pieces, what's been delivered and what's coming. But want to make sure people understand we're not talking only cloud instances, and we're certainly not talking only virtual machines of a variety of hypervisors, meaning we've got physical machine coverage as well, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I mean, one of the things that we talk a lot about at Veeam with our customers is this idea of workload portability. And just understanding the nature of our customers, we understand that there's physical, there's virtual, there's VMware, there's Hyper-V, there's public cloud, there's on-premises, there's service provider managed, there's service provider hosted. We're moving forward into the land of containers. There's a wide variety, if you will, of destinations and additional administrative places of concern where your data can live. And the nice thing about where Veeam's portfolio has kind of evolved to is that we understand the customer, we understand the challenges, we have a really good dynamic relationship from a communication standpoint and kind of the constant feedback process that we're able to gain from our customers. And it's allowed us to really come up with a broad portfolio of offerings that basically says, I'm going to provide data protection for you, irregardless of where your workload may sit or where you may want it to be in the future.
Yeah, I think that notion is really important because one of our co-founders, he oftentimes would semi-conflate hybrid cloud and you'd say hybrid cloud and multi-cloud kind of in one breath, just like I munched them together. And I actually like that, even though there's technically a subtle difference between the two. What it starts to imply is a multi-cloud hybrid cloud experience can very much include on-premises as well as varying kinds of cloud implementations, but cross-cloud either today or tomorrow, and potentially even pulling data back where it may make sense. And one of the poster children I love for that is our Office 365 product, because it's really one of, I would go so far as to say possibly the only truly consumable SaaS application where if you have the data, you can do something meaningful with it because you actually have the app that can read that data, modify that data, whether it's Exchange or SharePoint or OneDrive. Teams is another really good example. So I liked how you mentioned the data portability, Tim, and those kind of common platform services, whether it's security, it's portability, automation and application interfaces, maybe automation and APIs. I know our colleague Jason Buffington, that's often on these Monday live streams, he does some Veeam Innovation Awards, VIAs, yet another acronym, but we often award to various Veeam Cloud and service provider partners extended innovation where others have taken Veeam technologies and added their own intellectual property and services capability on top of that to deliver even more value. Tell us a little bit about that, Tim.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, any service provider wants to put their brand around their offering, and they a lot of times do that with the creative development of their own custom portal. So when a customer logs in, they get the unique partner experience. They get the value add layered on top of the traditional service offerings. And a lot of that has to do with being able to integrate and automate with Veeam software in order to make that possible. And as we talked a little bit about before, Dave, Tim and I spoke last week about the upcoming Service Provider Console. That's a critical component of integration for our service providers as they look to continue to build and evolve their platform of services layered on top of upcoming Veeam technology. With the advent of the V5 beta, I mean, we've 2.5 times the number of API calls that existed in previous versions. That's a huge number. It's very, very significant in terms of us listening to the feedback that we get from the community taking that information back to our product management and R&D folks, and then being able to turn back and offer a new and exciting product release that says, we've listened to you, here's the net new capabilities that we've built into the product based on the feedback that we've received. Now we're giving you the opportunity to go out and verify that basically Veeam's gotten it right. We listened, we've acted, we've responded, and now we're asking through the beta program for people to be able to go out and verify that our upcoming release will in fact meet their needs, which will allow them to go to the next level of automation and integration with their products.
Yeah, I love that. 2020 has been, by anyone's definition, a very unusual year, right? Not like what we planned for when we went to bed in 2019 at the end of the year. But yet, this year, Veeam has its greatest release cadence in company history, meaning either updates, new products, or extensions to products, previews of products, all happening simultaneously with that roadmap not slowing down in the next couple months as we close out this year and then looking ahead into very, very early 2021. Now, I want to ask kind of both of you a question. I'm supposed to be the enterprise guy, but I certainly look after and interested in all of Veeam's business. But while what we're talking about are ostensibly ways that organizations can consume Veeam and a variety of services through varying levels of assistance, what we're talking about, like with the Service Provider Console, that is not a charged platform that's, you have to pay a price or it's gated that individuals can't go and access that. So my sort of where I'm going with that is set up is there's nothing to prevent a larger organization or a highly geographically dispersed organization that says, for whatever reason, I need to have local presence of Veeam servers or Veeam capabilities and services, and I want to have over and above what we call Enterprise Manager, something else, something like the power that you're describing in this upcoming Service Provider Console release, version 5, version 4, and past already in the field. But if you're a large enterprise, this could still be of interest to you too, right?
Yeah. I have to jump in here, Dave. This is something I am extremely interested in. I've taken the lead in my group inside Veeam to work with our enterprise SE counterparts and our SMB and SLED team as well, so that this VCSP product is able to be consumed by other Veeam customers in the way that works for them. That's what makes the product itself so fantastic, because even though it was designed with a particular set of use cases available, there's no reason why an enterprise can't be their own service provider. And so a couple examples that I've worked on in the recent past, within the last 30 days, one opportunity at a large organization who has 30,000 remote employees today, and they want to back up all their remote data from their laptops to a centralized source based on geography. And they can use the Service Provider Console to do that, to deliver agents and manage them all without direct connectivity to those workstations. Similarly, I work with a large organization that essentially has its own IT arm, and they use that IT arm to manage their partner groups. And they use the Veeam Service Provider Console to do that. They manage their global licensing capability and license consumption, as well as the status and performance of those remote backup and replication servers. And the way they do this is without direct connectivity. It's fantastic, Dave.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I like most about the product. I mean, I think if I had a nickel for every time I made, sort of the reference that the exact same lean backup and replication bits that I use at home is the exact same code or bits that a major bank is protecting 20,000 machines and 8 petabytes of data with one instance of Veeam. The difference is, obviously, we have different kinds of infrastructure and we deployed it a little differently, but that's the power of a software-defined solution. And that's why I like this notion here of it showing people we can take the same technologies and deliver them in a variety of ways, consume them in a variety of ways, and offer different kinds of interfaces, or to both of your point, increasing levels of automation as well. But Tim Myers, if you're, say, an existing Veeam customer, and going back to maybe this has been a challenging year, there are ways to slide into a managed program. I mean, you don't have to throw everything away start from scratch if you would like to consume services through others, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we understand that people aren't going to go full tilt into any level of change, right? My best analogy is probably, my pool and hot tub. You heat your hot tub up, and when you go out there, you don't just jump right in. You kind of dip your toe a little bit, and you allow yourself to get used to the change in temperature. You get comfortable with the way that it feels. You gain some confidence that it's obviously not going to burn you when you jump in full bore. And I think that people obviously consume IT that way in the same manner. They're going to try something new. They're going to evaluate what the new solution looks like compared to what they have today. And they're going to jump to some conclusions. They're going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to need some enablement and some hand-holding until they gain the comfort and confidence of that solution. So we understand kind of that behavior. In fact, we expect that. And so if you have an infrastructure today and you're looking at transitioning a portion or a part of that, or considering moving to the cloud, or taking advantage of a VCSP Veeam-powered service, I mean, we certainly have a program and kind of a recipe for success, if you will, where it is the knowledge, it's the education, it's the demonstration, it's the POC, it's all of those variety of topics that's ultimately going to make you feel comfortable with the decision that you're making, because it's your data, it's your business, it's important to you, and we want to help you sleep well at night.
Yeah, great point. And I see we've got a question that's come in from Lydia that says, does Veeam work with third-party services like 365, referencing Microsoft, Office 365, and what others does Veeam currently support? So Lydia, thank you first for the question. Yeah, we're very, very focused at the moment on Office 365 or Microsoft 365. And when I say for the moment, we're looking and evaluating certainly other software as a service platforms, but now double clicking when I say focused on, Tim, we've been told by industry analysts we have the most deployed, meaning Veeam has the most deployed O365 protection solution, and it's very robust, meaning it is the email capability, the SharePoint online capability, OneDrive. What we have now coming out are Teams, especially due to a massive uptake in Teams data and usage during this 2020 year. So when we say O365, we really mean that very broadly. And I do want to go back, now that we mentioned a question, if we hit the map, I know we have a couple more countries. I think it's Morocco, South Africa, Colombia. So it's interesting, Tim and Timmy, we can get a whole variety of time zones, and there'll be several other areas that watch this later on. Here we can see a little double click of United States, really the North American, Central, South American area. Always great to see people tuning in. Here we see Europe and the northern part of Africa. Excellent, excellent stuff. Yeah, perfect. Man, look at that. That's excellent. So let's bring up a screenshot. I just took a screenshot off of the Veeam website. When we say there are partners out there, Tim Hudson, there are a lot of partners out there. Now, I'll just preface this before you jump in. The screen, I believe, knows the locale. So this just happened to populate at the top, providers that were nearest to me in Colorado in the United States of America, and the list goes on. But tell us a little bit about all of the various different partners, and probably hard to see because it is just a tiny little screen grab, but you can filter on ways to find partners that are appropriate for you.
Correct. Yeah, Dave, the service provider directory is a fantastic way to find a partner that makes sense for you. Looking at this screenshot it's giving me a little bit of a chuckle. There are 3 partners that I work with almost daily and certainly weekly on screen here, and they're some of my favorite folks to work with, so it's just good choice on the screenshot. Use the directory to find a partner that provides services that you need. Is it specific to just an offsite backup target? There's lots of folks that do that. Do you need more than that? Do you need a specific certification for the data center where your data is going to be stored? That information is available on the directory, as well as if you want to find out who offers DR or SaaS backup services.
Awesome. Awesome. And, if we kind of put a finer point on that, Tim Myers, I think we've got time for maybe one last slide. I'll let you start to kind of wind us down a little bit, but just want to double click on when we talk about number of different ways to consume Veeam, whether you're an existing Veeam customer or not, regardless of what kind of workloads you may be looking at. And I loved your point about, start slow, trial. Frankly, that's how our on-prem customers work too. We have, as of last week, we announced 400,000 customers globally. Very rarely does even a large organization say, here's $2 million, I want to do everything tomorrow. It doesn't work like that, nor would we recommend that, right? Start slow, get experience with it, and then that's why we get so many repeat transactions. Let's bring up one last slide that kind of double clicks on the various use cases in a little more detail, and you can help us unpack that.
Yeah, sure thing, Dave. I mean, no two people experience technology the same way, right? And I think it's for that reason that we've tried to understand what are the most common things that people are going to ask us for, and how can we categorize and group those into a way that makes sense. And, Tim kind of talked about these three earlier. When we talk about the infrastructure protection, there's a lot of effort that goes into the integration, the automation of the self-service portal, the instrumentation of the infrastructure just to be able to provide this service to the customer. That infrastructure being online and being able to recover quickly in the event of an unplanned outage is very, very important. And a lot of service providers today, they themselves may extend to the public cloud, right, for all of the benefits that us as consumers would. They'll have multiple geographic locations, multiple data centers potentially worldwide that they manage. And so understanding the idea that says not only do they need to offer this level of data protection to their customers, but they in essence need to eat their own dog food. They need to understand that they've got to protect their own workloads as well, so that it doesn't interrupt the level of service level agreement that they've put into place with their customers. When we move to kind of the traditional backup as a service and DR as a service offering, I'm backing up my data on site today, but in the event of that smoking crater in the ground and my entire facility becomes unavailable, right? Maybe there's a flood, maybe my team can't get back to the building where that data sits. Having that offsite backup is very, very important, right? The ability to recover and respond quickly. And for those that go one step further and we get to the DR as a service, now we're talking about not just having a backup sitting in an offsite location, but we're also talking about having the actual workloads themselves replicated to a secondary facility with the ability to power those on at that facility relatively quickly. And our final public cloud protection, it's no secret that public cloud is becoming more and more popular. We've seen the likes of Amazon and Azure and Google and others, IBM Cloud as an example, just really grow exponentially over time. And so as we continue to evolve our portfolio and understand and anticipate where those workloads are going to be, taking into account the public cloud protection only makes sense. So if we sum it all up, if you've got infrastructure on premises, no problem. If you've got infrastructure that's sitting in a service provider managed cloud facility or facilities, no problem. If you also have something that maybe sits in a public cloud or multiple public clouds, no problem. And ultimately, you've got that hybrid cloud scenario, which is kind of a D, all of the above. I'm going to have workload on-prem. I may have a certain workload that sits at a service provider. I may have a SaaS offering like Office 365 that I need to have protected. And so when we look at the capabilities of Veeam, we want to make that simple, and we really want to make sure that you have reliability and the ability to protect and recover your data.
Awesome. Very, very well said. Thank you both, Tim Myers, Tim Hudson. Want to give one last good shout out to your pod, now 5 episodes deep as of last Friday, the Tim and Tim Talk Tech podcast. Be sure to check that out. If you are interested in the console that we've been describing and the technology preview or beta that we've got available, that information is also available. I encourage you to check that out. Reminder, this just isn't for service providers as well, and there's no charge associated with that. So Tim and Tim, and everyone globally, which, by the way, Croatia hopped in here while we were just chatting, so thank you to them. Have a great rest of the day, rest of the week. Stay safe, stay positive, and we'll see you on the next live stream. Thank you all.